Now let's get one thing straight. Cars, vans and lorries are the lifeblood of British industry. There are 34 million vehicles licensed in this country, one for every 2 people. That's why the current cost of petrol and diesel is one of the biggest brakes on economic growth and is crucifying many families who are struggling to keep their head above water. And this is especially true in my constituency of Harlow, where high fuel costs are hurting many small businesses. And today I want to look at the current situation, the record profits being made by energy companies, and what is to be done. As the Sun newspaper said in its editorial last Saturday, and I quote, "It's welcome news that Parliament is to investigate why petrol prices remain sky high, even as the cost of oil plummets. While they're at it, they can look..." I'll finish the quote and I'll give away with pleasure. "While they're at it, they can look at why gas customers face 19% rises from a firm with annual profits of more than 1 billion. Consumers are being fleeced from all sides when buying essentials. It's time our MPs stood up for us." Mr Chairman, I'm here with my colleagues to stand up for motorists.
Marcus Jones.
Honourable friend for Harlow for giving way. Would he not agree with me that there is a huge frustration across the country that when the price of oil falls, the prices at the pumps seem to reduce very, very slowly and perhaps not to the same level? But when the price of oil increases, the petrol and diesel price seems to go up within minutes at the fuel filling stations.
As ever, my honourable friend has hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to set out in my remarks today what is happening and what we should do about it. Now let's look at the numbers. In my own constituency of Harlow, there are 33,000 households and 37,000 cars and vans. According to the RAC, who have done excellent work on the Fair Fuel campaign, we drive 9,000 miles a year. At 32... Just in a sec. At 32 miles per gallon, this means an ordinary Harlow motorist is using 281 gallons, or 1,277 litres every year. The cheapest you can buy unleaded petrol in Harlow is 133p a litre. But in most cases, Harlow motorists are spending £1,700 a year just to fill in their tank. Now, this is a £2,200 of income before tax for most people, a tenth of the average Harlow salary.
Caroline Nix.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and would like to congratulate him on having secured this debate. He's quoted some interesting statistics, such as the average driver in Harlow travelling 9,000 miles a year, but in rural constituencies like Romsey and Southampton North, the statistics are far more frightening, because the average motorist is travelling 10,000 miles a year simply to access essential services. And would he agree with me that in rural areas there is a particularly distinct and severe problem?
I agree very much so that rural people are also being crushed by the price of fuel. And I'm very glad that my honourable friend is here today to represent her constituency and those of many rural residents who are suffering so much.
I'm very grateful to the Honourable Gentleman for giving way. And coming from an area where fuel is regularly over £1.50 a litre in all our fuel stations in the Hebrides at the moment, I'm very grateful he's raised this debate. But I wonder if you'd agree with me that the Office of Fair Trading have to show quite a lot more teeth here in looking at the distribution of fuel, and particularly as the price is going up, as has been noted. It goes up very quickly at the pump, the price of oil, but when it's falling, it doesn't happen at the pump at all. And the Office of Fair Trading really have to start investigating this trade in a very fair way.
Yes, I thank the honourable gentleman. I agree that should happen, and I've got another proposal which I'll set out later on. But can I also congratulate him for the work that he did on fuel prices in a debate in the main chamber earlier, some months ago. Please.
Anne Morris.
Generous giving way. While the focus very much has been on the individual motorist, we have spoken a little bit about the small business. It seems to me if you combine the issue of rural businesses, micro businesses, they are the ones that really are very badly hit, and that is really where we need the economy to grow. And the range of prices, you talk about an average of 136p a litre. In fact, it's 130 to 151 pence, and that sort of price is mostly in the rural areas.
Again, my honourable friend is right, and I'm going to set out actually what the FSB say, how the fuel prices are actually crushing business and economic growth in a minute. Now, in total, my town is spending at least £63 million a year on petrol, of which about £40 million is tax. That does not even include gas and electricity bills, which are spiralling out of control. The budget of my local council is just £13.5 million a year. And imagine if people could keep even a fraction of that money in their pockets to spend on the local economy, rather than giving it away to big oil companies and foreign countries, and dare I say it, the Treasury. But I welcome what the Chancellor has done so far, because when he refused to implement Labour's petrol tax of 4p in April and cut duty by 1p, he saved Harlow motorists at least £2.5 million every year and put fuel into the tank of the British economy when we needed it most. I'll give way first to my honourable friend.
Honourable friend, very much for giving way and indeed for securing this debate. On the subject of the Chancellor's initiatives, would my honourable friend please also support the decision to have rural fuel pilots? The acknowledgement that constituencies such as my own in Penrith and the Border, where we have nearly twice the distance to travel to GPs, to post offices, to job centres, need to be recognised in a different way, and the Chancellor is to be congratulated for the steps he's already taken on rural fuel and should extend them.
Yes, I very much welcome that initiative, and I'll say later on I believe a commission should be set up to look at all kinds of ways of reducing the price of petrol for motorists, and I think that is one of them. I'll give way and then I'll make progress.
The member for giving way. And we're somewhat different in Northern Ireland than the honourable member is in Harlow. We have a land border, and currently the government is losing somewhere in the region of £280 to £300 million a year on fuel smuggling and laundering of fuel. We're currently looking at the whole issue of corporation tax in Northern Ireland. If duty was reduced on fuel, or, as the honourable member has stated, maybe even a pilot scheme in Northern Ireland, it would save the government an absolute fortune, but would help the motorists and the commercial enterprises in the long term.
As so often in Westminster Hall, I find myself, as I said last week, agreeing with the honourable gentleman, and I think perhaps that could form part of the Commission. I myself plan at the end of July to go in a truck with a trucker to Europe to see how they manage to get all their fuel cheaply, and yet English truckers are paying far, far, far more. And he makes a very, very important point. Now, going back to my own constituency, we're a town, I would argue, that we're held to ransom by petrol prices, where motorists are robbed of a tenth of their salary just to fill in their petrol, their tank. Now, fuel poverty is defined as spending more than a tenth of your income to stay warm, and that is all about domestic homes. But what about spending a tenth of your income just to drive to work? And that is what motorists are doing. And this is an issue also for welfare reform, because I welcome the government making great strides with universal credit, lower taxes for lower earners, and the work programme, but all these benefits could be wiped out by the rising cost of fuel. Every 1 pence in the pump price will cost the average Harlow motorist an extra £13 a year. Now, for someone on a low income, just let me make a bit of progress. I will definitely give way, but let me just make a bit of progress. For someone on low income, commuting perhaps from Harlow to Basildon, the actual cost would be much higher. Inflation quickly starts to add up, and we mustn't let petrol prices become part of the poverty trap and deter people from getting off benefits into work. And nor should we forget, as has been mentioned, rural constituencies. My good friend Guy Opperman, the Honourable Member for Hexham, has campaigned for many years, and he's asked me to mention this in the debate, campaigned against fuel poverty suffered by his constituents. He's not here because of his recent operation. And he wrote to me yesterday to say that fuel is a necessity in a constituency of 1,000 square miles, not a luxury. And across the country we see the same tragedy. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
The member for giving way and also for securing this debate today. He mentioned specifically the issue of job creation and the importance that plays in terms of welfare reform. One of the issues that the FSB picked up in their survey earlier this year was that companies faced with rising fuel bills would stop creating jobs but would also look at laying people off, and that also has huge implications, particularly in Northern Ireland, where we have a higher proportion of small to medium-sized enterprises and also a heavier reliance on fuel because all of our freight, for example, is road-based.
Thank you.